Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of Den Excelsior, episode 99, the week before Comic Con. You got me and you got Dennis this week.
Woohoo! We're doing it. Did I just spike the mic right there?
I think you're a little spiky,
Gotcha.
but
Sorry.
welcome to the new people. I don't know what we did, but we have quite a few new people to our YouTube channel.
We're just awesome.
Which is awesome. I mean, maybe it was a promise of feet pics. Maybe it was a good content. Could be both. We'll find out next week.
It could have been me being featured like 7 times on marvelousnews.com.
Yeah, we got to start charging them. I think they're kind of using you now.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm really happy that we have like this influx of new people coming to check out the show, or just to check out what other content we got on denixmedia.com.
You came at a perfect time when we're gonna take a week off.
No, we're not going to take a week off though. I think our plan is we want to try and do some mini little live streams like on the platforms. We're not going to do this show next week.
We're going to be obviously busy next week.
But yeah, we're going to be at San Diego Comic-Con, having a blast, doing fun stuff, and having, collecting a bunch of fun news to report. That won't be Hollywood news because that's not happening.
Oh man, you just want to get into that right now? I mean, I had that in my news, but
I mean, we don't have to yet if you don't want to, but I just think it's I'm pretty freaking excited for Comic-Con right now because when I started going in 1999, Hollywood didn't give a shit about Comic-Con.
You're purist.
And no, I'm not saying I'm a purist because when I was going, it was still way bigger than when the people who gave me tickets were going, but for me, when I was going, it was about the comics and the toys and the merch. And then like somewhere along the way, they started saying like, "Hey, do you think it'd be cool if like we brought like Sam Raimi to talk about Spider-Man?" And we're like, "Yeah, that would be really cool."
Yeah, give me more of that.
And then ever since then, dude, it's been nuts. Like and so I think Hollywood has just become like so intertwined with Comic-Con that like that's why it's become such a massive like pop culture event. Like it's a global event, like everybody who can't go still tunes in to see what's going on there. And I'm just kind of spoiled because this will be like my 24th Comic-Con.
Wow. It's really something because like I got into Comic-Con because of you. And so this is my 10th, 11th Comic-Con, depending how you count it.
I count 2020. It counts. But if you don't want to count 2020, then it's 23.
But it was Comic-Con's all I've known in the con space over the past 15 years. Cons have exploded elsewhere, and I've gone to other cons, and it's nothing. Like not even on the same page of what Comic-Con is and what they do and who they bring. And it's incredible. Ace, I mean, it's shit. We're almost 60 years in now, right?
Yeah.
And they're just it is the mecca of the nerd and pop culture world for a reason.
Yeah, it was. So I think it wasn't my first convention that I ever went to because I grew up in Vegas, so I was exposed to a lot of conventions and I got to go to like CES and Comdex and stuff, a lot of computer oriented and consumer technology kind of stuff. Just for fun to see like new gadgets and new software and things like that. I did that like as a kid, like, high school, stuff like that. But when I went to Comic-Con, like when I learned about Comic-Con, I was here, or I was in San Diego visiting one summer and my uncle was driving me through Gaslamp and I saw all the signs, right? And I'm just like, what is that? And he explained to me that it's like a convention for comic book stuff. And I was like, what? Like my mind just was blown. And years later, when I was going to school here and a friend of mine had tickets and he unfortunately had a death in the family. So he knew I was a big nerd and he asked me, "Hey, Dennis, would you like to go in my place?" Because you could do that back then because they didn't care. And I was like, wow, yeah, sorry for your loss, but wow, so I went, and it was the most amazing thing I've ever done. And I did it by myself because I didn't know anybody that had tickets. I didn't know, how to do it. I just went by myself, and it was the most like emotional thing ever for me because I just didn't know that something that beautiful existed. And so I was super spoiled for comic conventions. And then like it took me years and years and years before I ever considered going to another one. And I remember it was I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, my wife was working uh we were both working for PlayStation, but she got offered the chance to go to work New York Comic Con at the Sony booth and like show off stuff. And um, I was like weirded out by that. I was like, I don't want Comic Con.
You're cheating on Comic Con.
I don't want to cheat on it, And but I was like, but she does have a hotel, and so all I gotta do is pay for a flight, and so we went there, and then she was telling people, that we were my friend Vince and I were in town, and so they're like, oh, we can get them badges if they want, and so we were just having fun doing New York stuff while she was working every day at a convention, and then we got these free badges, and we're like, well, I guess we gotta go if it's free, And I will say this: New York Comic Con, it's pretty cool.
I've heard good stuff about New York Comic Con.
It's cool. It's not San Diego Comic Con.
I've only ever pretended to go to New York Comic Con.
Tokyo Comic Con is pretty cool. Not as cool as San Diego Comic Con. WonderCon, cool. Not as cool. LA Comic Con, cool. Not as cool as Comic Con. But tell me why you pretended to go to New York Comic Con. I didn't miss that. I heard that.
In my one ununion movie appearance, Ted 2, it took place at New York Comic Con, but the set was on location here in LA. But it was all New York Comic Con branding.
I see. That's pretty cool. Yeah. Sure. But yeah, no, I think, obviously since New York, I became a comic convention slut. And I've just been to a lot of them just because I think it's a fun experience. But I do like comparing and contrasting, but nothing beats
I've never had a bad day at a con, but like when I'm at Comic-Con, it's like the most zen, peaceful, stressful moment of the year for me.
Peaceful and stressful?
Yeah, I mean, because there's like the stress of buying stuff, there's that angle with it, but then you got to see everything, and it's a very like beautiful time in my life every year. And then every other con, I'm fine with like, go in for a couple hours, do the lap, and then be done.
Yeah.
Like I know at the other cons I don't have to see everything because in all honesty, there's nothing at any of those cons that is cooler than the smallest of panel at Comic-Con.
Yeah. Exactly.
And it's just a fact. Like it's just the reality of the people they bring and location and size.
I've never been wowed by anything another Comic-Con has showed me, relatively speaking. Yeah, like, am I still wowed by like? Would I rather go to a Comic-Con than go to McDonald's? Yeah, yes. Like,
it's like a garage sale. Every time I drive by a garage sale, you take a little peek, take a look-a-loo.
I would say it's a little bit cooler than a garage sale. But yes.
Well, while we're reminiscing, I guess we're going to segue right into this. We, in preparation for our big week, we wanted to kind of take a trip down memory lane. We got some top 5 Comic-Con moments for you and me.
All right, I'm excited about this. Let's do this. I did politely ask before the show if you could do yours first because I want the chance to be moved by you, but 2, I'm older and I think I've just been to more cons, and I think I have.
My first Comic-Con was back in 2005, I think, but I only went for the day. I was very young. I started regularly going to Comic-Con while I was in high school. I would fly over here and come for the summer and go to Comic-Con starting in 2011. But starting with my number 5, it's kind of more just a collective feeling. Our little pre-ritual for Comic-Con for the past couple years, we go to the lovely Spaghetti Factory and enjoy a nice meal on preview night with the company, friend of the show, Clark.
And this picture was
producer
taken in
Lindsay.
2015, I believe. Yeah.
No, this is last year's picture.
I know
I
it
couldn't
was. I know.
find. I was not a part of this group for a minute. My first couple
I'm
years of
just joking
Comic-Con,
because you chose the one time ever that we wore masks to this.
we
The
don't
entire
take pictures at Comic-Con together, surprisingly enough.
I have pictures, but yeah, I don't have a lot with you actually. That's true. That's
My
true.
first couple years of Comic-Con, Dennis was, I think you were technically tasked with supervising me for the weekend.
Yeah, whatever.
I would see you maybe once and not by a scheduled meeting. You were just the guy in the wheelchair that I recognized.
Yeah.
I know that man. But no, I think this little meeting of mine, I would actually, to be honest, I have hung out with Clark more than I've hung out with Dennis at Comic Con. We're kind of line buddies at this point.
But there's a reason why, and it's the wheelchair, right? Like,
Yeah, there's.
I'm only allowed to bring one person in, and I have to go into entries different than everybody else, and so that's why once they change that, because back in the day before your days, they used to let me bring my whole crew in. And so we would do everything together. But at a certain point, when a lot more people started saying they were disabled at Comic-Con, they started getting tightening.
Yeah, rightfully so.
Regulations.
You can't. You gotta.
And so my wife goes with me to Comic-Con every year, and I feel like it would be a really dirty move if I chose somebody else if I attended it. So. But in fairness, you usually go with me on Wednesdays, so on the first night.
No, I have no animosity towards I think Comic-Con for me, a solo is quite enjoyable because it's like you can do a lot more with just one person. It is really hard to do things with a group there in general, but it's always nice to have like the one meal or the one meeting. It sets the tone for the week.
It's a good pregame. I like the pregame. It's fun.
My number 4 is a panel back in, I believe it was 2012. Every year, I think it's Collider. They do a panel it's called Directors on Directing, and they pull a group of directors together for an hour-long panel, and they just talk. And in that year, the 2 directors were Steven Spielberg and Peter Jackson.
Okay.
My God, that was an amazing conversation. 2 masters at their craft, just talking and shooting the shit about directing movies. And obviously Spielberg has his legacy, Jackson has his legacy, and just to see him, I don't want to say like joke, but make light of situations or talk about moments in specific films where they just winged it. Yeah. It's really cool, and it really shows how talented they are, and why a lot of their work is celebrated at Comic-Con.
It's true. That's cool. That's awesome.
Number 3, this is a little Gaslamp moment. If you're listening to the show, is the picture of me with a snake around my neck. If you go to Comic-Con, Comic-Con, of course, is in San Diego Convention Center, but half the fun is actually outside of Comic-Con, in the streets. There's so much stuff going on outside that's just there by association but not connected to Comic-Con. They shut down the streets. It's an amazing time, and I was out there one year, I think this was probably 2013, and a guy had a giant snake, and I'm like, hey, can I pet your snake? He's like, you want to hold it? And I'm like, yeah, I want to hold a snake. And he just gave me a snake to hold. I took a bunch of pictures with it. Pretty random encounter, but I loved it nonetheless.
That's not exclusive to Comic-Con, but wow, Ricky, you've put on some weight.
I have. My number 2 moment is another random Gaslamp meetup, this time with one Kevin Feige.
How old were you in this picture?
This was the Age of Ultron year. So what is that, 2012?
2012 or
no,
14?
14. Comic-Con's weird because the city really doesn't sleep during the week. You literally, in some cases, party till 2 or 3 a.m., go take a shower, and then come back because you have to be in line the next day for something else.
Mm-hmm.
And this was one of those instances where I was out late, came back, or went home and showered and came back, and as I was crossing the street, I see Mr. Kevin Feige getting his morning coffee in the Gaslamp. No security, no fanfare, just him doing his morning routine, and politely asked him for a photo. He obliged, and it's one of whenever I need to pull nerd cred, I usually pull out this photo and like,
That's pretty
you
cool.
got a picture
Yeah.
with Feige? I do.
I'm gonna hijack this story for a minute and say like one not included on my top 5 was a similar kind of thing, but it's with I didn't include it because it's not cool anymore to talk about Joss Whedon fanning out and stuff. And so, but I had a similar experience where I was just crossing the street and like in the in the giant mob of people, they're all crossing the street at the same time, and I happened to look to my right, and just walking by himself with a backpack just Joss Whedon, the director of the Avengers and stuff. Like, granted, this is before he was the director of the Avengers, but to me, he was the man who created Buffy the Vampire Slayer and had done a lot of other cool stuff before Avengers. And I looked at him, and I don't ever like to just say the normal thing you would say. So I looked at him and I said, "Have you lost weight?" And he looked back at me, and he just like in the middle of walking across the street, he looked back at me and said, "God bless you." And then when we got to the end of the street corner, I remembered that I just happened to have his run on Astonishing X-Men, and I asked him if he could sign them, and we took him out of my backpack, and he signed all of my comics. I thought that was
Comic
really cool.
Cons, it is different from other cons where it really is a celebration of the work and of the fans. So unlike smaller cons where talent is, I mean, they're all technically paid appearances by the studio or somehow, but usually at a smaller con, you get like an actor or a director or writer, and they post up at a booth. You pay $40, $50, take a photo, sign something,
Yeah.
and that's the interaction. I'm not saying they don't enjoy it, but there's definitely a monetary aspect of it. Whereas Comic Con, there's really none of that there. Really, when you catch
Well,
people in
if
these,
if you go to the Star Trek
there's some of
booths,
it there, but I feel like it's a different vibe when you're asking for photos. Obviously, you want to be polite, but it's
them Star Trek people charge a pretty penny for pictures. And I'm not knocking them for that either. Get your
don't
money,
knock the
guys.
hustle. Don't
Get
knock
your
the hustle.
money. I'm just saying, like, it's always kind of surprising to me because there's so many free opportunities, like
Mhm.
the one you showed here, or even Joss Whedon, who used to be cool.
There's people
Um,
walking around everywhere, just given the
yeah,
proximity of the convention
yeah,
center.
exactly. What's up? What's the last one?
My last one, this is not a photo from the panel, but it's what it is the photo of Dave Filoni at a Comic Con panel, and I've told the story on the We Have Spoken, our Mandalorian podcast before.
Mm-hmm.
But one panel, this was back in 2011, so pretty early on in the Clone Wars shows or series. I actually didn't care about that show at all, but I was in that panel because I was sitting in for the next panel, which was Gears of War 3, which is a game I love.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, Star Wars, I can sit there for an hour. And this was kind of my first introduction to Dave Filoni. If you don't know what he looks like, he always wears a cowboy hat, and that's kind of his motif.
Mm-hmm.
But at this panel, he talks about the new series and the season, and of course they do a Q&A at the end, and this guy comes up to him and asks him this very specific question about Ahsoka using Kimbo or dual lightsabers. I forgot what the style is.
Yeah.
And how would she have learned that if Anakin never learned that from his master or any of the masters he trained under? And Dave Filoni listened to the question, nodded, and sat there for a moment, trying to think how to answer this canon question that he is now in charge of. And he literally just pulled out a pen and wrote on a notepad, Anakin taught her this fighting style. And he shows it to the crowd. He goes, I just made a canon, so she did it. And everyone applauded, and it was probably one of the most funniest things that I've ever seen. To see a creator kind of take ownership of I don't know, a mistake or an oversight, but then kind of correct it in a funny way.
Yeah, I mean, he's just. I think it's more not just about correcting. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's about like enjoy the content
Yeah.
and stop. You know what I mean? Like, um, that's really cool. I really like that one touched you so much. Like, I do have a weird story that's not technically Comic Con related, related to this. Like, if you've never seen Battlestar Galactica, I mean, at this point, you're never gonna watch it, but that it's a whole story, kind of
Yeah.
like
It's like
Terminator,
story
about
and movies and
humans made AI AI became sentient, realized they were better than humans, and they basically started a war with humans, right? And then this takes place in the space where it's like one of the last remaining like uh, vessels carrying the human race on it because they just nuked the Earth. They nuked the Earth, and so like then there's like these secret operatives that are like not they're like the Cylons that are hiding among the humans, and you're like trying to figure out what the deal with them is and stuff, and like and you're trying to figure out the mystery ones and all this stuff. And what ends up happening is like if you get all the way to the end of the show, you find out that like angels are in the story, and God was responsible for everything, right? And my favorite thing about that, I know this is a very divisive thing for a lot of fans who really like the sci-fi nature of this show, but right in the last episode, you introduce the concept of angels being among them and God was responsible for everything, right? Not to say that God wasn't ever talked about, it just wasn't like it just didn't it just came out of kind of out of left field, right? And for me, I thought it was the greatest thing ever that the creator did this because he essentially gave himself Comic Con armor, right? He never has to explain any plot hole,
It's
or he
all
can
God's
just
plan.
yeah, like he can do basically he can drop the mic harder than Dave Filoni did and just say God. Like, how do you explain in episode 222, like God, like angels, God? And it just cracked me up because like that's really the fine line there for a lot of people is like you either accept the things that are happening in your story that you're a fan of, or you just go find something else that
Yeah,
you
you enjoy
enjoy.
what you enjoy. You don't. There's
Yeah.
definitely like a crowd there out there that likes to nitpick and
But what I like for the most part is Comic Con is filled with people who just want to enjoy.
people
There
who
are
get
there
it.
are always the one or two in the that have the questions that it's like, ugh, now Dave Filoni has to do this, really? Like it's I mean, I get that it's funny. It's a funny thing, but that's kind of his way of saying F you
No
to that person.
QA. If you're ever planning a panel, don't do QA.
Yeah, dude. If you're ever at a Comic Con panel and they're like, we're opening it up for QA, that is your chance to leave early and go get to the next panel without having to endure the humiliation and embarrassment of another human being. It's rough sometimes, man.
Yeah.
It's rough, you know. And then sometimes you have cute moments where a little kid comes up and asks if they can have a hug from Gal Gadot or something like that. And you got to be like, "Oh, okay, can I have a hug too?" And then you're like, "No, you're great. You're gross. You're gross. You're gross." So, um, but that's a good list. I like that. That was
All
that
right.
was more down to earth than I expected,
You were
Ricky. I
expecting like Avengers announcement and stuff, or
Yeah. I know how much you love the commercials.
IGN party. That was fun.
Okay, well, you just way to call me out on mine. All right, you ready? You ready for my list? I
Let's
like
do
your
it.
list. Okay, cool. I got five, and I'm gonna preempt you by saying I kind of cheated. I cheated.
You got
I
honorable
forgot.
mentions.
I forgot that, or when we talked about doing this little segment, I remembered that a few years ago in 2020, when Comic Con had to be officially canceled, but instead, like they did a virtual version because of the pandemic.
Hmm.
Um, I felt really bad. I felt like, wow, I lost this special thing that was really important to me every year. And so I kind of made my own like social media like tribute of the things I love of Comic Con, and it ended up being a list of five things. And I was like, oh crap, I already have a list of five things. You know what I mean? I didn't realize that because I did one for every day of Comic Con. You know what I mean? And that just so happened to be 5 days. And so what I did is I just looked through all those photos and I kind of reorganized them a bit, to kind of encapsulate, the things I love the most, and then maybe highlight one specific. So here's your first one. Number five is the loot, right? Like, let's not lie. You go to conventions to get stuff. You want to go there and come away with something more than just the empty wallet you spent on the ticket, right? You want to come
Hmm.
away with an even emptier wallet. And so for me, I just love the freaking loot at Comic-Con so much. And I love the experience of getting special loot there that you can't get anywhere else. Obviously, that's peak capitalism. And I'm a sucker for it, especially when it comes to Marvel stuff. And I think if I had to pick the greatest piece of loot I've ever gotten, it's probably my Hasbro like Infinity Gauntlet, like from the foam one that
Mhm.
I chose to be like kind of like my symbol every year afterwards. And I wear it on my chair and people love it and they love to fist bump it. They love to wear it. Like it's just been with me ever since. It's a great thing. But I love just the experience of getting all that stuff. And then, yeah, I tacked on the other loot I love the most is that freaking spaghetti that we have every time on the first day. You know, those are like I can count on the spaghetti more than I can count on getting loot as good as the Infinity Gauntlet. So,
I feel
yeah,
like the loot's gone. I don't say downhill over the past years, but there definitely was a heyday where
they're just making it a little bit more accessible, and I get that too. If you're a hardcore collector, it's pretty rough to pay the
Comic Con
second.
sucks if you don't live in San Diego. Or
Yeah,
you don't
if you
go.
if you got to pay the secondary market prices for Comic Con stuff to complete your collection, I don't blame you for hating this stuff. So I get that they're making it a little more generic-ish or a little less exclusive. It's all good. It's all good. All right, next up, my next favorite thing or favorite moments of Comic Con. This is a generic one, but I did pick a single one in the middle. I chose the eye candy, and I for me that's the displays, that's the cosplay, and that's everything that you see, and you're just like, what the hell is that, And so it's a lot of cool things, like you said, inside and outside the convention. You see just amazing things. You know what I mean? Like you might see the entire, an entire group of cosplayers dressed as the Venture Brothers cast, or you might see like some weird giant bumblebee thing that's like 20 feet tall. Like, what was that thing? I don't even remember. Um, but I think for me, this picture in the middle sizes up like probably my favorite thing that I ever see at Comic Con almost every year. Hasbro does a few dioramas that are giant, like just massive dioramas of like pretty much, I don't know, featuring what, like 100 characters usually, all in a
Yeah,
giant
it's like a
battle.
big, almost like 6x6 diorama.
Multiple floors to it, right? There's like underground levels that you can see from the sides, like because it's a
Hmm.
cross section, right, of a basement or something like that. And for me, when I see this thing, like they do one for Transformers, they do one for Marvel, and sometimes they do one for GI Joe and Star Wars and stuff. But when I see these things, like I look at them and the wheels start turning, and I'm like, yeah, how can I tell stories like this? And so what's funny about this picture is I look at this picture and I was like, hey, that's the dentist that wanted to do toy photography for toy photography before he knew he wanted to do toy photography. Like you can see it on my face right there. Like it's pretty hilarious. Like it's just like I got to do this, man. And I think that's cool because it's awe inspiring, and when you get that sense of awe from something, especially storytelling, and it motivates you to want to do it, how can that not be one of your favorite life moments ever? So that's number two or number four for me. Number three, like Ricky was saying, the famous celebrity encounters and like the parties that you go to. How can you not? How can you not have some enjoyment out of those? Uh, I've met Mahershala Ali. I've met Dopinder from the Deadpool movies. I've met Simon Pegg. Like Kumail Nanjiani, Joe Quesada, Joss Whedon. But I think the two best moments I've ever had just randomly meeting people that I never planned to meet was literally on our way to Comic-Con one morning, like early morning, because we like to get there early. In the Gaslamp district, we just ran into Nathan Fillion just on the street. He was coming back from you can see he's carrying multiple cups of coffee. So clearly somebody is waiting for him to return with this coffee. And we just stopped this man and we're like, oh my God, I love you. And he's like, I know. And then I said, can we get a picture with you? And he said, I've been waiting my whole life for you to ask. And I know that's a line. I know it's a line, but it made us feel so good. And this guy was just he's a gem. I've every time I've ever seen him like on a panel or in person, he has just been the sweetest human being ever. And so for now, until he gets me too'd, I treasure this picture like more than most of them in my life. And then on the right hand side, I kind of gave this one a tie because there was one year in I was at a party, a Comic Con party, and I was way into Metal Gear Peace Walker that year, like really, or Peacemaker, is it
Peace Walker.
Peace Walker? It is Peace Walker. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I was way into that game, like hardcore, to the point where I carried a PSP with me around all the time, and I would just play that in the car or wherever, whenever I could wait somewhere. Like if I was waiting in line at Comic Con, I just play Peacemaker and stuff. So here I am at a party with our good friend Clark, and I know some of the other people there because I got in through my Sony connections. So there's other Sony employees there, and a friend of mine who was a coworker at the time, Will Powers, he wanted to introduce me because he works with me at work, and he knows that at work on my breaks, I play Peace Walker all the time, right? So Will, like I guess he's been going around schmoozing with people, and he's met, he's hanging out with Jeff Rubenstein from PlayStation Blog, and Greg Miller, who was a writer over at IGN at the time, and he's like, "You got to meet my friend Dennis. He plays Peace Walker all the time." And he's like, "Really? Oh man, I like Greg just starts asking me like all these questions, and I'm telling him like I beat all the things, like because there's all these secret quests you can go on, and I was like, I don't know. I was drunk, and he was just talking about how he like how good he is, and I was like, let's see. And I just whipped out my PSP, and in like without missing a beat, that dude whipped out his PSP also. And then my friend Clark whipped out his PSP, and then Jeff Rubenstein whipped out his PSP, and we proceeded to play Peace Walker at a full-on adult person party where everybody's drinking and dancing. We played that game for probably a good hour, and that was, I swear to God, one of the coolest things I ever did at Comic-Con. And what made it even cooler was the following week when
Yeah.
when Greg Miller wrote an article about his favorite thing that he did at Comic-Con, and it was that moment, and that picture was on IGN, and I was like, wow. So it wasn't just me. Okay, cool.
I've met Greg Miller multiple times now, but early in the down 12, 13-ish, I would meet him at PAX. I went to PAX for a minute every year. And every time I met him, I would always introduce myself as, hey, I'm the cousin of that guy you played Peace Walker with. And without skipping a beat every time, he remembers your name. I don't bring up your name, but he remembers your name. And it just brings joy to my heart every time. So
yeah,
Greg, if you're listening, we gotta do a reunion somehow.
I just love that moment was just as special for him as it was for me, and so ever since then, I can, without missing a beat, like I said, like if I see him, I get an instant hug, like he just wants. We're just the Miller brothers, and that's what we do, and so it's great. It's a great moment, and it is easily one of my greatest Comic-Con moments as well. So it's not just Greg's, but I think Greg made it mine. So, all right, next up, I got. Wait, did we skip?
No, we did skip.
There it is. The panels. All right, like I thought you were going to talk about a lot of panels. I really did. I've been to a ton of them. Over the years, I may have gotten a little jaded. I don't like as many of the ones that are just Hollywood people coming to sell you a thing because it's just a giant commercial, and I don't like paying for commercials. That said, I have seen some really cool commercials, like a lot of cool ones. Sam Raimi, like I mentioned earlier, bringing footage from Spider-Man, the first ever Spider-Man movie ever. That was nuts, dude. Like that wasn't even Hall H. That was like Ballroom 20 at the time, I think. And it was a crazy scene. It was crazy. I saw the cast of The Walking Dead before they were the most famous thing ever in the, like in the planet. And they were just a really cool group of people. And that was a weird one because like the guy who played Rick, we learned that he actually he has like this weird phobia of watching himself perform. So every time they would play footage on the screen, he would actually be told, and then he'd get up and walk away and go outside because he couldn't see himself playing a character. Like I don't know what that is,
It's an
but I was like,
occupational hazard.
I know, right? That is an occupational hazard. I saw Kevin Conroy be best friends with Mark Hamill. I grew up my whole life thinking that Mark Hamill has to be best friends with the cast of Star Wars, right? Because that's the only thing he ever did in his career. But then it was way later in my life that I learned, oh wait, no, he actually has been the Joker with Kevin Conroy, rest in peace, for the majority of his acting career. And when we got to see them on stage talking about one of the Arkham games, these guys were like, they were like Bert and Ernie, man.
Well,
They're
those
freaking
are the moments that make it, right? Because again, you like you said, everyone's there to sell you the thing. But I think when you get the genuine moments in between, those are the memorable ones for me. Like
yeah,
like the one I can recall is the Kingsman, the second Kingsman movie, with a very a younger Pedro Pascal, Halle Berry, Channing Tatum on the panel, and they had a bottle of bourbon they brought out. And long story short, it ended up with Halle Berry drinking a
wow,
pint of bourbon on stage at the beginning of the panel, and hilarity ensued throughout. But these little actual interactions that make them, they're
people.
celebrities, right?
They make
They
them
make them
people, right?
people and relatable and likable.
Yeah,
That there's just not something you could script when you're trying to sell something. You can really
for
tell they
sure.
genuinely enjoy the work they're doing and they enjoy the company that they're with.
And they're surrounded by people that appreciate them for the work they do. And that's like, I just got to, segue that for a second. Like, there are so many jobs on this planet, right? And there's a lot of them that are in some way in a form of service to someone else. And like, the sad thing is, so many of those jobs go thankless, right? They never get to know how appreciated their work was. Like, or they just get a paycheck and that's it. And what I think is the coolest thing ever is that these people who create art for us get a moment to actually sit in front of the people who value them the most and make them feel appreciated. You know what I mean? Because like some of these people don't feel appreciated often because they don't get that kind of validation, and so some of them have severe mental anxieties and depression and things like that. And so like it's so cool to see how this impacts people, and how, and let them see how they impact us. I think that's a fabulous thing. And that's why like the number one that I ever saw was the moment that they brought out the entire cast of the Avengers to show us that it was happening. That takes the cake, man, because they finally said, we know what you want. We know what you've always wanted. You want team ups. That's what comic books are. It's not about reading issue number one and being like, well, I'm done. That was good. No, it's about the Infinity
The
Gauntlet.
toys playing together.
Yes, exactly. And so to have this be the first ever instance of the toys playing together, promise, it wasn't even the thing. It was just, here is our promise to you. These toys are going to play together. That was the craziest thing I've ever heard and seen. It was amazing. Um, yeah. The other good one that I almost, I had to fight with was the cast of Steven Universe did a live concert for their fans. And, that's a really cool thing to want to show your appreciation by performing off work. I mean, yeah, they're still getting paid for it, but it's not like their normal job. Like it's like the time that Michael Rooker decided to go into full makeup to come out on stage as
Yeah.
Yondu. That is no joke. The guy gets up early to be Yondu. You know what I mean? Like he did that just to be with the fans. And I think that's super cool. That's just really awesome. And so for me, the only thing that tops all of these is just, oops, why does it say number 3? I meant to change that to number 1. I screwed up the slide, guys. Cancel the show. It's over. It's over.
Your
It's
wife's
supposed to
number
be
three.
number
That's
1 is
all.
being with my people. That's what it all comes down to. Like all of this stuff, yes, is really great to experience solo, But I think the coolest thing about being solo there or with people that want to be there too is you're surrounded by so many people that all are nerds just like you and just like me. You know what I mean? And that is super cool. And you just end up making connections through it. You know what I mean? Like there's another picture there with me and Greg years after the original meeting. Like I have multiple pictures of Greg because we are now Comic-Con friends. You know what I mean? Like I have people at the Aspen booth that was created by, Michael Turner. They are just my friends and they draw amazing art for me because they know me and they get to see me once a year. Like I run into people like our good friend Nas. Like, look, there's a picture of him with his child as a baby on him. You know what I mean?
I
Like
don't remember that was Nas.
that's Nas. That's I think I've just been running into Nas before we were ever even friends at Comic-Con. Like when you know that you have people that go to Comic-Con, like, and you can count on seeing them, it just makes it feel that much specialer.
Well,
Like,
I'm glad I made the cut in these photos.
wait, are you in these photos?
No, I'm not.
I tried to make sure you weren't. No. Yeah, like I said, I made this in 2020 for, celebrating the missing year, and whatever pictures I had in those slides, they're just what I gave you right now. So you got to deal with it. Yeah, but you are elusive. You are kind of a ghost, and you don't show up in a lot of my photos actually. So, but I do see you every year, and I know you're there, and it's and honestly, it's probably just I'm a little envious that you still get to do it solo.
I've gone with my partner every past couple of years, but we limit it for days, partially because of scheduling. But it is so much easier. Like I don't know if I could ever commit to like even in Hall H when I'm with Clark and we're waiting online. There are panels where we're not sitting together because we're kind of leapfrogging ahead to try to get a closer seat.
Yeah.
It's just the name of the game, man. Like it's a solo man's con at the end of the day.
If you're comfortable being a loner, you can get so much further at that convention. You can do way more things. Like, yeah. Our good friend Frank, from the show as well. He I knew that he always went to Comic-Con all the time. And so there was one year that I just invited him to come with us because I just wanted to hang out with him at Comic-Con. And so I decided to make it into an event. I was like, what if we did drunk Comic-Con for the day, right? Like this is my first time ever doing drunk. I did Comic-Con sober for so many years.
Drunk Comic-Con
and so he's like, yeah, that sounds fun. So we each brought we were each responsible for bringing our own alcohol to conceal and drink all day at Comic-Con. So that we could keep it going. And so we started by doing Jaeger shots before we got in the car at 8 a.m. And then next thing you know, like we each had our own thing, right? I brought a water bottle that was just filled with pure vodka. That was a terrible idea. Every conversation I had with people, my breath just smelled like hot vodka. But the funniest thing about it is, Frank went with us. He did drunk Comic-Con. We all were drinking, having a blast in the car. As soon as we got there, we hung out for a little bit. And then, like, drunk Frank just started meeting girls in line and having full-on conversations with them. And then next thing you know, like, he's like, I'll see you later. And when that guy became a lone wolf on that floor, I never saw him again, man. And we were his ride. We were his ride, and he didn't come back. Like, it was amazing. He just showed me what I had forgotten, which was Comic-Con by yourself is a pretty magical thing.
I don't have the same shared Comic-Con experience as Frank in terms of myself stuff, but you can buy a lot more things or go see a lot more things when you're
It's
solo.
all good. No judgment. No judgment how you choose to spend that time. I'm just saying you could do a lot of really if you're open to it, you can do all kinds of weird stuff at Comic-Con. Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally.
I that was not me putting like an upside down pineapple out on our show, by the way. I'm not. That's not what I'm doing here.
I think the honorable mention could be the Wired Party or the Wired Lounge that you introduced me to. That place was amazing.
That's
Rest
pretty
in
funny.
peace.
That's just free booze. At any time you wanted to go get free booze. Yeah.
Amazing.
Needless to say, Drunk Comic-Con is pretty cool, and I highly endorse that.
I'm excited for next week. But as we wrap up our pre-Comic-Con talk, let's take it over to the little bit of news that we got. So, remember 2-3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago, Miss Marvel died in the comics?
Yeah, sure.
She's coming back. Miss Marvel, the New Mutant. This necessarily I don't think would be news, even though we are a comic book show based on Marvel. But Miss Marvel's coming back. She's going to be an X-Men and a mutant. She has a new cool kind of X-Men costume. But more importantly...
How is she a mutant now?
Well, if you got to buy the comic to find out.
Fine, whatever.
But more importantly, this new run of Miss Marvel is going to be written by Iman Vellani, who plays Miss Marvel on the Disney Plus and soon to be in the Marvel.
Wow, movie. That's really cool.
So it is cool. She went from Miss Marvel cosplayer to the Miss Marvel actress to now the Miss Marvel writer. So if that's not love, then I don't know what is.
Dude, that's super cool, because like now that means that you're the fantasy is complete, right? Like
she is dictating her own future.
Yes, she's dictating her own future, but she's also saying that I know Miss Marvel better than anybody, and I will gladly, if you give me the opportunity, I will gladly show you for as long as you let me. They gave her the keys to the character. That's nuts. Dude, they never even let Robert Downey Jr. write Iron Man comics. In fairness, they did let Jon Favreau, though.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know who's the last actor that got to write stuff. It was Paul Dano. He wrote the Riddler's prequel for the Batman.
Yeah. I think that was a recent one. It actually happens a lot, but like for some reason, this just really excites me for her. Because Miss Marvel as a character is still very young in her career or time in comics, and so there's a lot of room to grow the character.
Yeah,
and that's a really cool thing that Iman Vellani is actually doing this. That's a good piece of story. I like that. Good piece of news.
Well, next piece of news, you touched on the beginning. We got a writer strike and an actor strike.
We got an actor strike as of 2 days ago. Now,
first time it's happened in 60 years or since the 60s.
Yeah.
But as a result, they can't make any appearances at Comic-Con on behalf of the studio. So quite a few things have gotten canceled. I think the biggest hit is probably going to be there was going to be a Dune 2 panel. That's no more. The Boys Gen V1 got canceled, and then there was a Sesame Street panel that got canceled as well. But about a half dozen or so, or actually about a dozen panels canceled so far. More are probably going to be expected. But what can you do? It is the nature of the game.
Yeah, I'm not going to be a guy that's mad at these people trying to protect their economic futures and there's much bigger things at play here. It's unfortunate, or
they still can come as guests.
They can come as guests. That is absolutely true. People can come. They just cannot be promoting anything. So like Correct. You might not, but yeah, it's. Mm-hmm. I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of them there just for fun, but like, you're not going to get a lot of the panels that we just talked about, right? You're not
correct. You're not going to get the big spectacle or.
Yeah. That said, I highly encourage you to check out like the sketch drawing live shows the live panels they do, because they're not part of SAG. And they'll definitely be there performing for your entertainment. It's
really cool. Go check out the the stuff not in a ballroom or a hall H. Those
Yeah.
are you find some good stuff in there.
I'm actually okay with that, you know. And then to
Um,
keep the Comic-Con talk rolling,
got some toys.
a brand new Hasbro. They're calling it a Comic-Con exclusive. I feel like this is shady. They've been doing this for 2 years now. When they don't sell them at Comic-Con, they just give out the QR code so that you
To
can go
buy
on
the
their
thing.
website and buy it and get it in like October in the mail.
Is that
And
what
I'm
this
like,
is?
that's what this is. This is the Comic-Con exclusive Marvel Legend 2-pack. It's Deadpool and Hydra Bob.
What
And
they said is not going to be there. Like they've already
it's
confirmed
not
that?
going to be there. Just the
Okay.
QR code. Same goes for the G.I. Joe exclusive, which is really cool if you like G.I. Joe. But the cool thing here, I mean, obviously we've both gotten a Deadpool we've like not both. Collectors have gotten a Deadpool and they've gotten a Hydra Bob in the past, but they have never gotten Deadpool on the beautiful new Spider-Man and Daredevil toe articulate
Toe freaks.
with these crazy ab crunch and all this stuff. And on top of that, the most accessories ever in a 2-pack. I love all of the freaking expressive hands that come for this Deadpool. So you can finally do all the weird little gestures he does that break the fourth wall when you're just having him look at you and say, I love you. He does. No, I just really love this box set. I think it's super cool. So
Cool set.
it is.
Is Hydra Bob on the toe body too?
Nah, he's just on an old school Hydra soldier body that's way outdated. And then if the accessories weren't enough, there's the interior of his briefcase. It's a molded plastic thing that has like it's got like the wand of Watum, it's got a banana, it's got car keys, and it's got a thermos that says Bob on it. And I just think that's a really nicely decoed piece of plastic. It's really cool. So I think it's a really cool convention exclusive because it's not too exclusive in that, like,
If you want it, you'll get it at a
yeah,
decent
if you want it, you're gonna get that. But I don't think there's that many people that don't already have a Deadpool and a Hydra Bob that are gonna be like, I need this thing, you know. So that said, on a lower scale, Walmart likes to horn in on the events of Comic-Con.
Collectors Con.
And so about 3 times a year, they have this thing called Collector Con, where they just gather up all their exclusives from all the different companies, and they just tell you, you should come to our website and buy these things. And so most of the time, they're okay. Sometimes there's a sweet one, but we have 3 of them coming up next week for Marvel Legends. 3 is a lot, guys. Calm down a little bit. The most recent one unveiled yesterday, I think, or 2 days ago, was they are repackaging the 6-armed Spider-Man and Morbius and saying, you want this, right? And I would normally say, you know what? No, I don't want that. But they actually fixed the Spider-Man and gave him an ab crunch that the old toy didn't have. And now I'm like, damn it.
I'll take the Spider-Man. He'll look at my desk.
He's a pretty cool Spider-Man. He's got an ab crunch and he's got 6 fully articulated arms. He only comes with 2 different pairs of hands. And the Morbius is a very good classic Morbius. So, like, if you didn't have Morbius before, this is a cool Spider-Man 2-pack. What's up?
Is that a cloth cape?
He comes with a no. It's a
swappable capes,
but you can swap it to be his little spread out cape. Yeah. So it's all right. And then as a reminder, there's the other 2 things that are going to be available at Collector Con are the brand new Bucky Cap figure on the new body that's been used on the Vulcan and a few other characters. It's a great body. It's the best generic male superhero body they've ever made. And it's a cool suit, unless you know that it's designed by Alex Ross. Nah, it's designed by Alex Ross. That's why I don't like it.
I like Alex Ross.
And then also Joe Fixit, the Incredible Hulk, first time ever technically in the Marvel Legends line as a comic book figure. They have made a figure very similar to it for the Avengers video game, but the hands are smaller and the head is way grosser looking. So
it's the same body?
I think it's the same body. I could be wrong, but it's a good body though. It's a really good body. So and then, most recently outside of CollectorCon, Some leaks just finally came out of Turkey. Sergio the Collector posted the final figure in the new Disney Plus
Yeah, that's kind of out of left field.
line. It's a little bit out of left field. It's kind of a spoiler. It's telling us what's going to happen in an episode of What If later this year. Bill Foster, the Goliath, is going to be a character in an episode, and so he gets a figure. He was played by Lawrence Fishburne in Ant-Man 2. And in fairness, that movie sucked. So let's give Lawrence another chance at the MCU.
Yeah, if you got Lawrence Fishburne on retainer, you're gonna use him.
Yeah. So I'm excited to see the Goliath story. It's probably like, what if Ant-Man wasn't Ant-Man? Like, it's fine. I'm cool with it. Let's do it. And then finally, just showing off the Build-A-Figure on the right is the new version of Hydra Stomper, which I guess also spoilers, because they're kind of showing you a modernized version of the mech suit that's piloted by Steve Rogers. And as a reminder, at the end of one of the episodes last season, they did show him coming into the future, right? So
what is the over-under that we get What If by this time next year?
Is it not coming out this year anymore? Did it get pushed?
The only two things on the list for this year are X-Men 97, Echo, and Loki.
Okay, so I think we'll have it by this time next year.
Okay.
I think it's a good summer show.
That one and Spider-Man just kind of slipped away from everybody's. I think they showed What If at Comic-Con last year. They had their own panel.
Well, because they had that episode that didn't get to finish, right?
Yeah.
It was for the first season. Yeah. All I know is I missed this show. It's super cool, and it's way better than the show we had to watch this week.
Well, I guess I'll just take us right into it. Let's do it. Here we are.
I'm not that mad. I just wanted
How are we getting into Secret Invasion?
I wanted to get you a good segue, and that's what I was giving you. Yeah, we're going to talk about Secret Invasion episode 4 that aired this week.
It was the shortest episode that we gotten.
It felt short. Short.
30 minutes.
Yeah. What did you think about this episode, right? Like, you want to recap it really quick for everybody?
The plan starts coming together for Gravik, and he launches his attack on the U.S. government to hopefully spark retaliation by the rest of the world. Right? Is that?
I mean, that's the dumb background story.
Nick Fury does Nick Fury things.
Yeah, the main story, it starts with Nick Fury meeting with his, or we're learning about the relationship with his wife, right? Because I think last week we found out he had a wife, and now we're just like, how does that work? And so now we get to learn more about the wife and like how they met and stuff, and so let's
talk about the good things. I want to hear the good for you start dunking on this.
I like the idea of learning more about Nick Fury.
Okay, that's on my plus too.
I don't necessarily like that it doesn't somehow he's like Teflon, and it doesn't seem to add anything to his character. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he had really one chance to make me feel for the death of Maria Hill, a few episodes ago. And I don't think he did that. In fact, it made me feel like he still felt like he needed to be on the job. And so like, maybe that could save this show for me. Maybe if at the end of all of this, the loss of Maria, the loss of spoilers, spoiler warning right now, the loss of Talos, the loss of, potentially more people that are super important to him. I want to see him have a moment to himself where he feels these things, because as long as he's not feeling the things, I'm not allowed to feel the things. And if I'm not allowed to feel while I'm watching the show, then I'm kind of bored.
I think you're going to get that moment.
I really hope I do, but I don't like to hype myself into expectation mode.
To rewind it a little bit, I still think the character moments that we're getting in this show and even in this episode are some of the best things that we've gotten in the MCU so far. The individual moments, if you
I
slice
think
them out,
I think
I
they were. I didn't feel very many from this episode. I guess I kind of like the scene with his wife, like when they
I
shot at
love the
each
scene
other.
with his wife.
I wanted to love it, but again, I never really get emotion out of Nick, you know?
I'm with you there. There's still this weird lack of cohesion with those moments connecting with each other, and then with Nick and him showing other emotions aside from cool spy, you know. And I think we're getting there. You know, there's a moment when he's listening in on the conversation with his wife and Rhodey where he is uncomfortable with that conversation. You know.
Yeah, but he's always doing the job at the same time. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I would love to see the the super spy armor removed for at least a moment in the show.
Yeah.
And I do think they're building towards that. Um,
I I think Age of Ultron was the greatest thing ever for Hawkeye as a character because it allowed people to stop harping on Hawkeye and always be like, why is he an Avenger? And then for the first time ever, we got to really see him as a person, right? And that family of his became an anchor for the emotional impact of Thanos's blip, right? At the beginning of Endgame, you
mhm.
see a truly painful moment that just recontextualizes you, like, or reminds people who left the theaters a year ago, shit, that was rough. And then when they get back in theaters, oh man, Hawkeye has in his family. I forgot about the family, and it hurts so much, right? And it makes you endeared to Hawkeye. I don't have any of that for Nick Fury because he didn't cry when Phil Coulson died, and he didn't cry
He's just that
when
good at
Iron
his
Man
job.
died. He didn't cry at the funeral. Like he just
He's got
stood
to
there.
keep up
I
appearances,
don't
you
even know.
know.
Yeah, it might have been Talos, or you know what I mean. Like who knows? But it's. I get that he always feels that he has to be on, like as you know, but like it just feels like a slight waste of Samuel Jackson. That's what you know what I mean? Because I know
Yeah,
Samuel Jackson can go emotional, and I've been waiting for him to just not be cool for one moment, and I'm just getting a little tired of him being cool all the time.
yeah. Like again, the scene where they're in the kitchen together, he's talking with his wife,
Cool scene.
and they explain how she is playing his wife technically, right? Like that's kind of the whole context that she's just chose to disguise herself as
Yeah,
um his wife, and swore to protect him, and they ended up loving each other. And she asked him, like, would you still love me if I didn't look like this? And I think you could have gotten a really good moment out of there, but he does the cool guy answer. I guess we'll never know.
I
And
know the cool
damn
guy.
it, Nick, like
I'm just getting so tired
I
of the
need you to
cool
be.
guy.
I need drop the machismo. Show me, shed a tear for me, man.
Yeah, it just
Show
feels.
me Oscar award winning Samuel Jackson.
I want to believe with you, Ricky. I want to believe that it's gonna happen, but I'm not sure. You know what I mean?
But
And
to the
so
to the flip side, though, I really like to see with Rhodey again. Um,
it was
Now
funny.
we have new context. Obviously, Rhodey's a scroll, right?
A
But to
scroll
see
woman, by the way.
a scroll woman,
I love that.
but to kind of see Nick Fury, for lack of a better phrase, play with this food, was neat because at this point he knows, right?
Yeah,
And the scroll's kind of still oblivious, almost hubris, right? Or lost in the hubris. And there's that line where he's like, is this poison? He's like, no, it's just nano tracker, and they joke over it. But sure enough, it is a liquid nano tracker, right? And like that's the cool spy shit I want to see from Nick Fury. I want to see,
yeah,
show me the James Bond gadget, show me the little gizmos that he has up his sleeve. That if you're gonna go spy Fury, I think that's the angle I want the show to finish out on. Right?
yeah,
Is
yeah.
let me see all the toys. Let me see all the cool stuff that he has.
And I will say this though, like all of that is very true to Nick Fury as a character. And in fairness, Nick Fury as a character was written so long ago that he was written to be the macho man, right? That was in charge of this in secret organization that protects the world all at all times, right? And so he was just this badass character in the comics. And I think maybe I just, because it's Samuel Jackson, I want him to go beyond what the comic book character is and do something more with it. And I guess technically, if you're a diehard fan that likes to see your comics like, you know, put on screen, uh, well, if you're racist, you won't like Nick Fury. But if you're not racist, you are getting Nick Fury. You are getting what he is. But like, I think that's the reason I don't normally read Nick Fury
Well,
comics, is because he's that. He is
let
that. That's what he
me
is.
when they launched the Ultimate Nick Fury, right? It was Samuel Jackson in the comics. Like it was
Yeah.
specifically drawn to look like him, and you got the Samuel Jackson of that time. You know, the badass motherfucker Samuel Jackson.
Yeah.
And as an actor, I think he's evolved past that point in his career. You know, leaps and bounds.
I
And
don't know about, well, in his career. I mean, he's way beyond that. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I think the character Nick Fury that he is based off of is kind of stuck in that era, right? A little
Yeah.
bit.
And it's dating him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I want to see them evolve past that. And I really do have hope because again, the character moments in the show are so good.
Yeah. Love him or hate him, like Chris Hemsworth's Thor has evolved significantly since we met him. You know, like even if you like Agents of Shield, woo, the ride they took Agent Coulson on, man, it's nuts. Um, and I just feel like Nick Fury and Maria Hill, who was, by the way, a special guest star in this episode, because they re-showed the clip
Oh,
of
they
her
did the
dying.
flashback.
Yeah, well, they showed it on the screen, right?
Yeah.
She's been credited for almost every episode just because they keep finding a way to show you her die
And
again.
she got to get paid.
Oh, so funny. But yeah, when I feel like those are the two characters that have not really had these moments of growth, and I wanted to see them. That was genuinely what I was excited for. Even Everett Ross got more character growth in Black Panther 2 when you find out that he comes home to Valentina de Fontaine or whatever, like, right, that's his wife. He like, or it's his ex-wife. I couldn't tell for sure. But in any case, all of these Shield people have gotten more lives than Nick Fury and Maria Hill have ever had. And I feel like this show's trying to do this heavy lifting of dumping a whole life on him that you didn't know about. But he's
It's
still playing.
It's a lot at once.
He's still playing cool guy, and it's just.
Well, let's pivot towards the end because we kind of covered the beginning, middle. The Gravik and his team kind of launches their attack on the president. We get a fight. We see Gravik uses his powers for the first time. Nick Fury, Talos come and save the day.
And time.
For the second time.
Last episode.
But Talos and Nick Fury save the president. Talos dies, but in terms, I guess, of that whole scene, where were we at? Were we loving it? Were we hating it? In between? Did it mean anything?
I wanted it to mean something, but everything we just discussed. Like, it almost meant something, but it's as much good acting as Ben Mendelsohn has been giving us these past few years as Talos. He's always serving it. He's always serving it so good. But like, I don't feel like Nick Fury's there to finish the layup. You know what I mean? I feel like he's always just trying to operate on some different wavelength, and like he's too cool for his best friend sometimes. You know what I mean? And so like, the fact that he like looked over at his friend's dead body and had to think about like, I gotta leave it here, right?
I gotta go.
He's like, yeah, I gotta go. That's like supposed to be his best friend, right? And so
that seems such a bummer because like, while Talos is saving the president, you know, hopefully this would enact his plan of like showing them that, hey, we're good guys.
Well, it still technically does.
Well, the president's passed out through that whole scene.
That's true.
And I think that was very intentional, right? Because there's no.
But that one soldier saw it, and that one soldier's gonna it's cool. It's cool.
But
I like Talos more in that scene for sure than I did Nick Fury.
My hope out of this scene is it elicits a response.
That's what I'm saying. I like this. You have your one chance, and it's next week, right?
And this is my beef with Iron Man 3 when they kidnap the president and string him up on the docks. That's not a fight that just Iron Man goes to. Obviously, he was the only one that did in War Machine, but at that point in time, you had a Captain America hanging around with Shield. I would assume that at least a Captain America would go save the U.S. president in that context. In this redo, where the president is attacked with he's safe with Fury. I hope that brings the cavalry.
Right? See, now you're setting even higher expectations.
I want one.
Just it brought the cavalry. A whole group of soldiers showed up minutes later.
No, give me one super.
Where were those guys when he got captured in Iron Man 3?
Right. Give me one superhero person.
You're so demanding of your fandom.
Just one.
Demanding.
Is that a high demand though, right?
Yeah.
You take the president and no superheroes go and help?
It's a high demand.
That's open any comic book in the 60s. President's kidnapped. We got to go save him.
We're gonna pivot this to something relatable or related. Last week we were having this funny conversation about Gaia and her death that meant nothing, and you were like, I don't think she's done. I think the character in the basement's gonna wake up, and we're gonna find out that she's somebody special, and it's gonna be I just think that the actress is too big. She's not gone, and I was like, okay, you're not wrong that the actress is too big, but probably Occam's razor. The simplest answer is the most likely, and I said she's probably just not dead. And I did love that. That's how the episode. Was it the first scene or the second scene of the episode?
20 seconds. They waste zero time of
just her getting up, and I'm like, that's pretty funny.
That's all she does. She just gets up, and then you don't see her.
Gets up, dude. She just gets up, and you see that she has the extremist inside of her, and that's why. And that's like, clever girl. You've got plant stuff in you too. But I thought that was funny because sometimes you just overhype the expectations in your head. And I
got the point right. We got her back. That's all I needed.
But I'm saying
I will stand by my commitment with one super person. Unseen unseen in the show super person.
Do I think a super person is going to show up by the end of the show? Yes. Do I think it's going to happen next week? I don't think so. Not yet. Yeah. I don't think the president warrants that for some reason. I think if anything, you should look at it the other way around. If it's not a bug in the system, it's a design. They have now established a precedent that when the president gets kidnapped, we just send like Iron Man, maybe at best, it's, I'm just saying, whoever's on the job already is the guy they'll send.
I'll take a leapfrog.
Nick Fury.
Wait, well, who's in Europe right now?
Not Batroc the Leaper, that's for sure.
Black Knight. Give me Black Knight.
That's funny.
Would that be funny? You know what? If this is how they bring him out,
I'll allow it. That's kind of funny. That gives an end to Nick Fury introducing Black Knight to the Avengers.
You got the Game of Thrones connection there, right?
That's a home run if you get that one right next week.
Let's bring Bingo back from the last.
I want it so bad. I want it so bad. If they put Kit and Kit Harington with Emilia Clarke again, that's super funny. And dumb at the same time. Like it can be both. I didn't even think about that. What I did think about was that Gaia now, what is her role in this story going forward now that her father's dead, right? After she had that long talk where her dad's like, oh yeah, I've got this really optimistic, altruistic plan to like show the people of Earth that we are good and then they will accept us. And she's like, you're crazy.
Like,
you're crazy, and so now she's also in a position where her father was, excuse me, all she had left, right? Like she's now been outed as being the spy, the mole among Gravik's people. So she has nowhere to turn. Like the only person she can be like with is Talos, her dad, or I guess by the transitive property now Nick Fury, right? Because she knows Nick Fury is the only person that her father trusted. So she kind of has to trust Nick Fury, right? So, but like that got me thinking, is she going to be Abigail Brand? Like, is she going to take on the role of the commander of the space station and assume a human personality of Abigail Brand, you know, so that she can do this? Or are they just, or am I
She
overthinking it?
can we get a little leaky and spoilery, or no? Should
I mean, you're saying she's going to be in more projects past this, right? That's what you're going to say.
there? No, there was a behind the scenes set photo with her wig, and what was labeled her wig had a notable name on it that wasn't Abigail.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can say it. Go for it.
I can't remember it now. It was Scroll Queen.
Oh, Varenki.
Sure.
Interesting.
Um,
That doesn't make sense, but
I don't know
okay.
if that makes a difference, but
No.
I mean, if we're talking that on the same note, coming out of this episode, I was like, why did Gravik like attack as Gravik?
No, what you mean to say, which is not the PC thing to say, is why did a black man pretend to be a Russian in Russia?
I wasn't
Like,
gonna take it there, but like if I
you know,
was going to,
the amount of black Russians they've seen, or black people they've seen in Russia in the span of this show is like more than the last 15 years, probably. Like that's,
but on even just a more basic note, like if I was gonna commit a crime and I could shapeshift and I had like this one alias that I kind of liked, when I was doing the crime, I would probably switch it up for the couple hours.
yeah, I know.
Regardless of
Yeah.
the race didn't line up for the crime that I was trying to commit or false flag into.
I'm just saying weird. You're not doing a good job of making yourself unforgettable if you show up in Russia as a black man. Like that's you're now.
To be fair, they
really
do make it
target.
a point about referring to Fury as like a tall black man in Europe.
Yeah, because well, in Russia, because
in Russia,
yeah, because that's not normal. That's what I'm saying. Like it's not. I'm not being racist. They're the racists. Like that's I'm saying the Russians. You know, like, and now I got hacked. Damn it! I just got hacked, guys. Crap. Oh well. But yeah, no, I agree with you. It's just it was a weird choice. And then I'm still trying to wrap my brain around like how it works that he has Groot powers inside of himself. Like, because that's not Groot powers. That's just what Groot is. So
he just turns into wood.
So is he just a wood guy now? Like it's
well,
like,
he's part wood guy.
But like when Groot uses his arms, they fall off and then he grows new ones. This guy's turned back into, is that because he's a Skrull? Like, I guess.
Oh, sure. Comic books, I don't know. I mean, the Super Skrull is kind of dumb if you think like.
I mean, this Super Skrull is the ghettoest Super Skrull compared to like the one we have in the comics. I'm just saying. Like,
the great value Super Skrull.
Like, what are his? Let's just recap what the powers are. So he's got Extremis, which we know that's healing and like you could blow yourself up, I guess.
Yep.
Right? Yeah. Really painful though. Not necessarily getting back together. You got Groot, which is just you just keep growing and falling off.
A tree. Yeah.
You just keep molting basically. You just molt. You molt however you want.
Cold Obsidian, which
I guess you're just beefy and your arms are cut offable.
You're durable, right? He was pretty scaly.
Except for when his arm gets cut off.
Yeah, well, yeah. And then you're Frost Beast. You're strong.
But that's the other one. The other one was strong.
Well, it's a Frost Beast. What did the Frost Beast do?
I don't freaking know, but that's what I'm saying. Like, this is like the most, like, if you had to ask somebody what are like the top 4 superpowers you could have, they're not going to be like, well, I want to turn into a tree. I want to explode myself and heal. That counts as one.
Would
And I guess the other 2 answers would be strong and strong. Like,
well,
you
let
know what I
me
mean?
let me ask you this: the last Disney Plus show we had was She-Hulk, right? And
Yes.
kind of a unfinished plot thread in that show was her blood. Someone out there wants her blood and has her blood. Would it have been a better replacement for a Frost Beast if he was part
No,
Hulk in some way?
because it's dumb because they're green anyway, so we wouldn't even be able to tell when they're hulking out. You know what I mean? There's
They're like a
already
different
green.
shade of green.
Whatever.
That's
No,
racist.
I'm just saying super strength is just so generic that I don't think you need 3 doses of it. You know what I mean? Like you can have let's get I wish we would have gotten more creative with the stuff that we have
Me
out
too.
there.
Yeah.
Like it would have been I feel like this is like Agents of Shield level of of mining from what's available, you know what I mean? Like this is definitely
The
I almost like
worst kid.
I think I Mandela affected an episode of Shield in my head where they actually have to go and catch that stupid ice beast because nobody else did, and they're like, we can use that, right?
You're probably not wrong.
But that didn't actually happen. They did do a lamer episode where they had to go to London for the same reasons. They had to go there and clean up the debris that Thor left from that battle. You know, that weird reality shifting battle where the spaceship crash landed in the in like the harbor or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Agents of Shield had to go clean that up. Like, and I'm like, ooh, this is a dumb episode. Like, it would have been better if there was the ice beast, you know. But I'm just saying, like, that's where this show is operating right now, like Secret Invasion. It's like, what's the dumb stuff that nobody cares about? Like, and I don't want to be in that space, you know. And I don't.
Well, by your own logic, episode 5 is the moneymaker.
And here's my problem with where we're going. I think they think it matters more that Rhodey is a Skrull. And 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 if they think it matters more than we think it does, then that's what next week needs to be. Is show me why it matters that Rhodey has been a Skrull for as long as you're excited to tell me, right? Like, was he a Skrull when he was kneeling down to say goodbye to Tony Stark? And is it make it more fun to go back and watch that scene? Because in a recent interview with like Kevin Feige, they talked about how early on they talked to Rhodey about doing this because they wanted to have a big character in the MCU be a Skrull. And I'm just like, one, I never consider this a big character, but
Oh,
but two, I mean, like nobody wants like it's Iron Man 2. That's what he is, right? He's Iron Man 2. Like it Ironheart is Iron Man 3. Like we have 3 operating iron people or 2 operating one's dead, you know. And I'm just like it dilutes it a little bit when we keep having more of the same power. That's what I was just saying, you know what I mean? Like let's have different superheroes. Like I like that Sam Wilson is like his own thing, right? He's like, yeah, he's calling himself Captain America, but
but
he's
yeah,
like,
he's a different character with different skill set.
yeah, he's got a totally different skill set and stuff like that. And so I'm just like, when your superpower is flying around in a suit of armor, and then the other guy is also the same superpower, it just becomes like,
Eh.
okay, it's cool, you know, whatever. I get it. Somebody's always got to be doing that. And so like I'm excited at the idea that next week could be good acting scenes for Don Cheadle. You know, like I think Don Cheadle's an amazing actor, and I love watching him do everything he does. I just want to know why I'm supposed to care that Rhodey has been a Skrull for this long, because he hasn't done, to my knowledge, anything really impactful in the Avengers other than he helped bring back an Infinity Stone, because otherwise all of the universe would die. You know what I mean? Like that's not. But if
Well,
you,
I think wherever we get at the end of this show or in the next episode is going to be whatever leads us into his movie in 2 years.
yeah, you're probably right, but like, that's why I'm saying I'm waiting to see if they can make me excited for that.
I mean, if we're just playing like what the facts are, that movie was a show, right?
Right.
And if you can either look at it two ways, they were either worried that like, hey, maybe we should just make this a movie instead, or they were really excited, like, hey, this is really cool. We should make a movie out of this.
Yeah, it makes you feel weird knowing that, right? Like either way, the information kind of taints your perception of it, right? Sometimes knowing too much about the production of something changes the way you experience it, And so I'll feel weird watching Armor Wars regardless of if it's good, because I'll be like, would the other one have been better, or would it have been way worse because they didn't have enough stuff to use? Like that's yeah. I don't like having extra thoughts like that. I mean, I know it's fun, it's meta and stuff like that, but I just want to experience it for fun and have just try not to have a lot of bias. And so I feel like this show is making me biased towards not being excited for the continuation of his story unless they really make this episode matter, which see, it's putting too much pressure on episode 5.
You're saucing it up right now.
It's too much pressure, and you want like a superhero to show up really quick also, like it's too much, right? So
we could get Moon Knight's over there somewhere, right? Show me Moon Knight.
You keep doing that. If they bring in the Man Thing, I'm just done. I'm like
Elsa Bloodstone, come on in.
Elsa Bloodstone and the Man Thing and Werewolf by Night all show up.
Fuck it, bring him in.
They meet Blade. Nick Fury says, "I love you guys." Gives them a Quinjet. Bam, new spin-off show, and you're like, "What? I didn't know we were getting this." That would be pretty cool, but but I feel like why tease it? Why not even give us anything remotely that cool for 4 episodes, right? Like that's a long time to string us along, and I just feel like, when SAG and SAG and the Writers Guild are talking about like possibly instituting a boycott for your streaming services because they're just vampires that are trying to like extract all this money, and I guess most actors and writers don't even get very big residuals for the stuff on streaming platforms.
No, they don't know. I don't think anyone gets residuals.
Yeah. And so that just means that the streaming platforms are like the best way for these companies to just gain wealth. And so, when I hear them say, hey, we might have to boycott streaming services, I'm like, what do I lose? Secret Invasion?
You lose your favorite Love Island, right? Or that's reality. So that doesn't count.
You mean F-Boy Island?
F-Boy Island.
They already removed that. That's gone.
Oh, man.
Max got rid of it, remember? That was a whole thing. They decided it was too much for their platform. And
Wow.
Like, what?
That was a whole thing. This show is a whole thing, and our podcast has become now a whole thing. That's my segue to wrap this up.
Nice. Yeah. No, I was fine. I was fine wrapping it up anyway.
I don't hate the show, but I am. It's like it's like doing I always equate it back to food, like a sushi tasting, right? You're sitting at the bar and the chef's bringing you sushi. You don't hate what he's bringing you, but you know it could be better.
I hate that I know it could be better.
You can see how it could be better.
Yeah, I'm just not. I'm not a fan of not telling any real story in 4 episodes, and they really haven't.
I'll leave you with this question: would you have liked this show better? Change nothing, except it's not called Secret Invasion. It does not have that baggage.
No, because if I was watching it and it wasn't called that, I'd be like, why didn't they call this Secret Invasion? It's not the name that I have.
Undercover takeover.
I don't have a problem with it being called. I don't even have a problem with them doing a totally different version of the Skrull invasion in live action. It's that there was a million different ways they could go with it, and this isn't really doing anything.
It's a weird
you know what I
lane.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not. It needs to really like. Am I supposed to care about Gravik, or is he gonna die like next week or in 2 weeks? I mean,
He's probably gonna die.
yeah. See, like, it would be cool if he was somebody more important. Like, right, if he went into hiding and then became the Kingpin for a little while, and then became different villains, and like
maybe that's the stinger. They shoot him, and then he turns into a different Skrull.
he becomes Kang. That would be good. But yeah, I don't care. It's not the name that's bothering me about the show. It's the aimlessness. It's the they're just spinning their wheels. You know what I mean? Like they're not doing anything. And then if they go into high speed next week, it's gonna be jarring, right? Because it's gonna be like, oh, where did that come from? Like would I be mad if it was awesome next week? No, I'm not gonna be mad. But like, am I expecting it to be awesome next week? I'm not. That's where I am.
Well, I'm excited to chat about next week once we're in line amongst our peers, and we'll see where those conversations go. But I think it is time to wrap this episode up. Thanks again for our new viewers and our person who's been watching us on Twitch. We love you. We thank you. If you like what you see, like and subscribe. Give us a download on Podbean. Maybe like our Patreon, patreon.com/DenX where you'll find all our
DenX
stuff.
Media.
DenX Media. Kick a buck or two or maybe $3, and you get some cool content on a weekly basis. But next week, as we talked about at the beginning of the show, Dennis and I are going to be at Comic-Con. We'll get some posts up. You'll probably hear our thoughts. But we will not be doing a normal show, given everything else. But we'll be back the following week to talk about the exciting conclusion of Secret Invasion.
But if you are our fans and you run into us at Comic-Con and you ask us our opinion of Secret Invasion,
I will give you $1 if you run up to us.
We'll give it to you, but you got to sign an NDA.
Yeah, you got to sign an NDA.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again. Thanks again, true believers. Enough said.